Paul W. Anderson. Paul W. Anderson. um, I have a certain love-hate relationship with this guy because I am aware that this guy is talented. He's a talented director, but boy, that he probably creates some of the most pretentious and convoluted movies that I have seen. And honestly, I can understand why people either love him or either hate him. But I do have my certain problems with him. Mostly because I consider Paul W. Anderson like he's trying to become the modern Uwe Boll, in which right now he takes a lot of properties, especially video games, most notably Resident Evil, and he creates movies that most of them are really, really bad or really popcorn flick, for lack of better words. For the better, for the worse. I know that he made, the Mortal Kombat. I think he was involved in a Mortal Kombat film. I actually like that one, even though some things didn't age very well. I only saw three of the Resident Evil movies. The first three. The first one was okay, but then it went downhill so much that I just gave up after I was so pissed off after watching the third one. Thank goodness I watched the reviews of Fearless, in which he kind of cemented my reasons why I stopped watching Paul W. Anderson films. And honestly, the biggest thing that actually made me a little bit tired of all those movies is that every single film that Paul W. Anderson do, they're mostly used kind of like a leeway or a medium to expose his trophy wife, Milla Jovovich. Yes, I do consider Milla Jovovich Paul W. Anderson's trophy wife, because all these films, they're only used for her to be glorified. Even though, I gotta be honest. Okay, I'm gonna stop right now. I'll talk to you about what I think about her later. Because the biggest point that I'm going to talk about in this vlog is that I recently just came out from the movie Monster Hunter. A movie based on the video game made from Capcom, just like the Resident Evil films. And many people I know that they were really worried because considering how he botched all these Resident Evil films, he just took over and made a mess out of it with continuity and everything, all to please and showcase, oh, look at how wonderful is my wife. I can understand why. So no wonder they were very worried. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I never played a single moment of Monster Hunter. I only know it by name. I only know some of the few elements because the most notable monster, the Rathalos, is in Super Smash Bros. I have absolutely... So you can... This vlog review, it's gonna be almost absolutely with me having no idea of the Monster Hunter movie. Of the Monster Hunter games, I mean. So, take in consideration that this is gonna be something taken out from the perspective of a moviegoer. But there's some few elements that I kind of investigated, and I'm gonna talk about this movie in the eyes of a moviegoer. And what I can say about this new Monster Hunter movie is that you go watch this film with the benefit that you know absolutely nothing about the game. You're gonna see that this film is basically just a mild popcorn flick in which, to be fair, I think this movie is kind of a little bit more watchable and even slightly better than almost all the Resident Evil films. But of course that doesn't excuse that there's some moments that it makes you question, Paul, what the frick are you doing? And yes, this movie is still a video game license movie that was only made as an excuse to show off your trophy wife. That's the biggest thing that I can tell you about the Monster Hunter movie. And to start off, for the uninitiated, I know that Monster Hunter is basically a game that is about, I think it was about forming guilds, getting armors and material from where you go battle giant monsters. It's kind of like a giant MMORPG, I would say. Maybe I'm wrong, but again, I absolutely know lick about the game. So let's talk about it what I saw on the movie. So what's the movie about? Well, the movie is about one of the most tiring and worrying tropes that many people, whenever they see this trope, they get worried. It's about people in modern times going into another world and they interact with a fantasy setting. Fish out of water tale, in which it sometimes can do kind of like the opposite. You know, a fantasy character going into the modern world. Technically kind of like the Sonic the Hedgehog thing, but in reverse. Like, you know that in the Sonic movie, it's Sonic that goes into kind of like into our world. This time it's kind of like the opposite, in which this time we got a military army in which the captain is none other than Milla Jovovich. They get involved into kind of like this storm in which they transport them into the world of Monster Hunter. In this case, almost everything from the movie is taking place on a desert. And you can tell that both deserts are different because in one desert it looks, you know, the plain old sands with a little bit of trees, plants here and there, and the Monster Hunter world is a desert which more spike mountains. Not even 20 minutes there. Everybody dies except Milla Jovovich. And boy, let me tell you guys, this is kind of like a wasted potential because the way the people are killed in this movie is really gruesome. Not very bloody, I'll say, but technically in a gruesome way that I kind of wish that the movie did more of that. But they annihilate almost everyone except Milla Jovovich because she's the main character, and of course they got dipped because the director is really in love with her. Well, so much in love with her that he married her, of course. Yeah. And during the course of the movie, then she meets this guy who is basically the title character, the Monster Hunter, who is this guy played by Tony Jaa, or Tony J. Tony Jaa. He's Yeah, he has this ethnicity that has, I don't know if he's Chinese or something like that. Well, leave it at that. I'll leave it like that. I won't go into so much details out of it. Without trying to spoil too much about the movie, they're basically trapped in kind of like this desert area with mountains because in the middle of the desert, in order to get to their destination, which is a sky tower, they have to go through this monster that can bury underground. He's named Diablos, and while on the Rocky Mountains, they must stay hidden on every night because at night this is when spider-like creatures they come out to look for for food, and of course it's always humans on the menu. Boy, this is kind of like the moments the few things that I can tell without spoiling too much, because honestly when I think about it, there's barely technically a kind of like a story. Almost 75% of the movie is kind of like that, but then the next 25 minutes, the next 25% part of the movie, this is where they kind of jump into finally an oasis, and they find the other people, and then one of the leaders is of course Ron Perlman, wearing a weird disguise that make him look like Dolph Lundgren if he was going to be cast into Conan the Barbarian film. And the funny thing is that the Tony Jaa character, he doesn't speak English. He kind of begins to talk in his kind of like native language. But then when Ron Perlman arrived, he's like, hey, I know English. And so on. And then the last 30 minutes is when finally they decided to battle the iconic creature, which is the Rathalos. And, frick it. There's a battle with the Rathalos. They begin to say about that there are two worlds, the world of the Monster Hunter and the world, the real world, in which they're kind of become protectors, something like that, and because they don't want the monster to go into one place to another, it's kind of like one of the things that you wanted it to happen. It comes up really, really late. And I'll get to that when it's due. Let me get this out of the way by saying that despite that Milla Jovovich is basically a walking trophy wife. Yes, I still call her a trophy wife. She is a trophy wife. At least for the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that she's a bad actress. She is practically decent. She's actually good on what she does. And she is a decent actress. And she could be a good action hero. Kind of in the roles of like Schwarzenegger or what was it? Still Sylvester Stallone. She could be on those places. But what hinders Milla Jovovich? That she only picks movies that are made by Paul W. Anderson. It's almost like he has her on chains and saying that, no, I'm gonna keep you here and I'm gonna watch, and you're gonna make movies for me. I would love to see Milla Jovovich in a movie that is not directed or produced by Paul W. Anderson. And so here's the thing, let her be on better movies. Oh wait, now that I remember, I did saw The Fourth Kind years ago, and I hated that movie. Get better agents, Milla Jovovich. I know you can do better. The other actors, they somehow begin to save really, really corny lives. lines, Milla Jovovich included. And the script is basically kind of like very, very kind of awful in a way that is either cringy or cheesy. Actually, I'm glad that they take out one of those really cringy lines in which in the trailer one of the military guys, he just say that, hey, it's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. I'm glad that they took out that one from the movie, and I know that they took out another one line from the trailer because it sounded racist. Honestly, I didn't notice. I don't care about that. But either way, some of the lines is really corny or cheesy. Although not every line made me as cringe as kind of like the latest Resident Evil films. But the pacing, I'll say that it could drag on. I mean, because during the first 30 minutes, they just go into the world, and then almost everybody in the military dies in horrible ways. Although it does feel like a horror movie with monster, which I was enjoying that, and then she meets Tony Jaa, the monster hunter, in which they begin kind of like a fight that you could see in an anime, which is both kind of hilarious in a way. And then they kind of become friends, which I have something very special to say. One moment. And despite that they don't communicate with each other, they just team up to see how they're gonna get through the desert and by defeating the monster that is named El Diablo. Okay, here's something very special, and the funny thing is that of all the Milla Jovovich things, of all the monsters that there is, of all the desert that there is, because this movie is 80% desert, of all the wrong permanent little moments that there is, and all the Rathalos, there's only one thing that is in my mind when I think about Monster Hunter the movie, and that is chocolate. So you might be thinking, why? Why chocolate? Oh, I gotta tell you guys. Because after this fight between Milla Jovovich and the Monster Hunter, she technically saves the guy from being eaten by the spiders. And then they kind of begin to have kind of like a peace treaty. In order to have this peace treaty in between Milla and the hunter, first Milla's like, wait, chocolate, and the guy's like, chocolate. Yeah, when the guy, and almost in instances in the movie, in random moments, he just spouts out chocolate. It's almost like the chocolate freak from SpongeBob SquarePants. You know, the guy that screams, chocolate! I was waiting for him to scream chocolate. Of all the monsters, every time I'm gonna see Monster Hunter, chocolate would come into my mind. Okay, let me get this out of the way also. Paul W. Anderson, I don't think that he's a terrible director. You can see that there are he's competent on some things, because honestly the CGI looks good enough. And the scenery, as much as this movie has too much desert, honestly it looks good. Oh, and I forgot to mention that apparently this movie also has some backup from Toho. You know, the studio that brought us Godzilla. Man, now I want to see the Rathalos versus Godzilla. Okay, but anyway, continuing on. What else I can talk about this? Okay, like I think that this movie does have a little bit of a wasted potential, in which it's gonna feel like it's gonna spoil a little bit, but bear with me. You don't miss much. Because here's one thing. I don't mind the fish out of water storylines. Sometimes I do like when a character goes from one world to another. Despite this being kind of like a tired formula, it could go either way. I mean, for example, one of the things that I'm kind of so-so with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is that we could have a better movie if we had most of the movie on Sonic's world instead of having this buddy human movie that turns into a road trip. Despite that, I still came out liking the movie, but I thought that it could have been a lot better. But in the Monster Hunter world, it kind of took a little bit of the reverse, which, granted, is a better idea, but it felt like a wasted potential because, again, most of what they did it on a desert, and as lavish as the desert looks good, it felt that it needed to be a little bit more than just the desert. Although they did finally reach an oasis, and there's some semblance of otherworldly things in that one, but I wish that maybe they could have seen more instead of, just focusing on the desert. I mean, I know they're trapped, but I think that probably fans will have been a little bit more happier if you get more of those game references. I mean, almost during the final 30 minutes of the movie, when they finally find other monster hunters, they found Ron Perlman. This is where you finally see a lot more things about Monster Hunter, including this cat, an anthropomorphic cat, which, funnily enough, I think that's the best part of the movie, aside chocolate. I don't know. But this cat was wasted because it doesn't appear so much. And I love that cat. So much that, let me tell you, this cat is only biggest contribution is in the mid-credit scene. And in the mid-credit scene, I was like, you brought up this cat and this cat can do a lot more than what we got? And by the way, yeah, I am aware that the two world things. It really sounds really pretentious. So much that even at the start of the movie, there were some quotes saying that there are two worlds that one is not aware from each other and all this thing. And it was like, look, Paul W. Anderson, I know that you're not smarter than that. Ah, jeez. And of course, yeah, we got the Rathalos, of course, which is the final 30 minutes. And almost every action scene is technically what you expect from a Paul W. Anderson movie. Flashy moves, quick editings, lots of slow motion, in which you can either enjoy it or you can call it off. You do a lot of things and it doesn't flow very well. Sometimes you get lost during the battle scenes. And there are times also that there are some action scenes in which it has some flashy lights, which I warned you. Even at the beginning of the movie, there are flashing lights. There's the Rathalos battle, but one thing is really, really clear, that in every single battle, it's being used to showcase how powerful Milla Jovovich is, because she has the power of Trophy Wife. And it feels kind of insulting in a way that the movie just, it feels unfinished, because when the movie ends, it goes into this cliffhanger saying that, nope, we're gonna get a second movie, and we're not done yet, with some question asked. So, either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. I can't deny that I wasn't bored out of my mind. Sometimes I got bored, but mostly because I was mostly paying attention since, again, I don't play Monster Hunter. I don't think it's kind of like my game. So if you play Monster Hunter and you know a lot about it, I'm very curious to see what's the big appeal of that game, and if it is faithful or not to the game, because it does feel that it has the elements, and I'm sure that when you are a director, you have the rights to do whatever you want with the formula. Like in this case, incorporate elements from our world to the fantasy world, and going from here to there, and vice versa. I don't mind that, but man, that Paul W. Anderson, please, I'm very curious for you to. I really want you to kind of stop trying to be the next Uwe Boll. You are on that road. Although you're not as bad as Uwe Boll, thank goodness, but still, I think you're gonna tone down a little bit with Milla Jovovich. And Milla, again, I know you can do better. You have the chops of a good actress, but pick up better movies, and I want you off a Paul W. Anderson film. No, not like The Fourth Kind. Something better, because I know she can do better. So, do I recommend it? Not exactly. I don't exactly recommend this movie. It's pretty bad. Pretty bad in terms of movies. But this is something like you expect from a film made by Anderson. So, with that said, chocolate.